Alright, so this video is going to cover the part of Chapter 6 in the Friedland Environmental Science for the AP book. Specifically, we're going to be talking about species interactions, and if you're following along in your textbook, this can be found on page 161 to page 165. So I'm going to be referencing some things in there as well, so it'd be good if you have your textbook open. Alright, so here's some context. Species interactions fall under the idea that the distribution of species around the planet is determined by three factors. So the first one is the range of abiotic conditions. The second is the ability of a species to disperse. For example, is there a mountain range in their way, or is the Pacific Ocean keeping it from going from Australia to California? And the final thing is how it interacts with other species. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today, is interactions with other species. So there are four types of species interactions, and they are competition, predation, mutualism, and commensalism. So you might have remembered from regular biology learning about parasitism, mutualism, and commensalism. They're all types of symbiotic relationships, or you might have heard the term symbiosis. So it's how two or more groups interact. So for parasitism, one is going to be benefited, and that's the parasite. And whatever it is interacting with is going to be negatively affected. For mutualism, both parties benefit. That's indicated by the positive sign. And for commensalism, one benefits and the other is not affected. All right? So those are types of symbiosis. Competition is not a type of symbiosis, but it is still considered a species interaction. So we're going to go into these in a little depth. Competition. So competition is the struggle of individuals to obtain a limited resource. So it might be food, it might be sunlight, it might be water, it might be a place to live. So they're competing for this same resource. So there is a scientist, his last name was Gauss, and his work led to what we call the competitive exclusion principle. And that's that two species cannot live in the same niche. Okay, so that means that one will always dominate over another. So here's the exact definition. Two species competing for the same limiting resource cannot coexist. And that's on page 162 of your book. If you look on page 161 of your book, it has three charts that display Gauss's work. So you can have a little deeper look at that. So once again, that's page 161 to 162. You can look at that in more depth. So an example of two species that show this competitive exclusion principle is the wolf and the coyote. And there's a picture of them on page 163 of your book, but here's a picture for you as well. So you can see that they're very similar, although there are things that they have that make them different. Such as their size is one thing that you can see right away. At the end of this presentation, there'll be some videos you can watch, and one of the videos will describe in more depth the difference between the coyote and the wolf. So because two species cannot coexist, struggling over the same limited resource, we see that species do three things through resource partitioning. They either go through temporal, spatial, or morphological resource partitioning. So temporal, the way that you can think of that is, I'm going to draw, that's my version of a little clock. They go different times of day. Okay, so temporal resource partitioning means that they are not going to be hunting at the same time of day, okay, or even the same season. All right. Spatial partitioning has to do with their geography or their location. So I'm going to put next to spatial the word location. So they might be competing for the same resource, but one might be competing for it, say, on the ground, where another one might be competing for it, say, in the trees. Morphological has to do with actually evolving in and forming differences in their appearance so that they have different advantages over each other. Okay, so it's specifically it's the evolution of differences in body size or in shape. All right, so there's in figure 6.16 in your book, there's some more information on resource partitioning. So here's the next concept, predation. So there are true predators, which would mean like, a wolf preying on a smaller rodent. Okay, there's herbivores, which should mean like birds that are eating various seeds. And then there's parasites. And this lovely, beautiful flower right here, called the snowflower, is an example of a parasite, believe it or not. So you might think of parasites just as bugs that make you sick, but this is actually a flower that acts as a parasite. So you're going to watch a video on how it negatively impacts the plants around it, but also how it provides some benefits through other ways. But specifically in predation, remember one thing benefits and the other one is harmed. So in this case, the snowflower benefits, and the animals surrounding it are harmed because it sucks the nutrients from it. All right, so you're going to watch that video more in depth in a few minutes. The next category is mutualism. So remember, mutualism is both benefit. All right, so you're going to watch a video on the ant with the acacia tree, and you'll see how mutualism exists. So basically, with mutualism, they both gain something from being near each other. All right, so have a look at these pictures and see if you can figure out the relationship. Remember, commensalism is one is positively affected and one is not affected in a positive or negative way, so neutral. So have a look at those pictures and see if you can figure out what it is. You'll have a greater opportunity to figure it out when you watch the videos at the end. Okay, so from the information that you've learned today, you're going to create a concept map. So your concept map must include all of the terms that we use today. It must also include examples of each terms, and it must include connecting words to show how those terms are related. So just as an example of a connecting word, if you were, say, to write the word teacher and the word student, so those are your key terms, you would be sure to write how they are related. All right, so you would say that they learn from each other. Sorry for my bad handwriting. Okay, so you need to not only include these key terms that we learned about, but also the connection. Okay, but before you do that, you are going to watch the videos on the next slide. So you're going to go to my YouTube channel, and you're going to click on playlists. And from playlists, you're going to find species interactions, and you will find 5 videos there that you need to watch. So watch those 5 videos before completing your concept map, and be sure to take notes on how the different organisms in those videos are related, what kind of relationship they have. Be thinking about the key terms that we've learned already today.